In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
May the 27th be with you. Welcome in. It's Follow the Money. Dustin Sweetelson, John Jastrzemski. You got us for the next 3 hours on VSiN, the sports betting network. We got a fun show lined up for you today. We got day baseball to sweat out, which means plenty of action throughout. We'll preview tonight's card as well. We also have a game about to get going in about 8 minutes here. We'll preview that in just a moment. We've got hockey to talk about because a historical run is continuing in Las Vegas as the Golden Knights find themselves in the Cup final again. This team has existed for 9 seasons. They've been there 3 times before. Can they win a second cup? And of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder made a statement last night. JJ, pumped to be with you again here on Follow the Money. How we feeling today, boss?
Dusty, feeling great. Obviously, it was a Tuesday that treated us rather kindly. I know you and I were both together on the Oklahoma City Thunder. There was never really much of a sweat as far as that game is concerned. And listen, I think the bigger takeaway now as we get ready for Game 6, and I know we're going to dive into all the angles of how you can make money on Game 6 in San Antonio. If the Spurs are going to have Wembanyama, Vassell, and Fox shoot like that, they don't got to bother playing Game 6. It's going to be game, set, match. San Antonio is not as deep as Oklahoma City. I told anybody who was willing to listen, you were going to see better performances out of the role players of the Thunder. They have so many to turn to. They have so many different guys that can go off on any particular day. You saw that once again in Game 5. Game 6, hey, Wemby, you want to be playing a Game 7 for the first time in your career. You want to push the defending champs to the brink. I know it's unreasonable asking you to be superhuman in every single one of these games, but that's kind of the requirement necessary to have any chance of beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I'm glad we got home with Oklahoma City, but you bet on San Antonio, you were expecting far more, especially from Wembanyama and Vassell. I'm going to give Fox a pass. Yeah. I don't know if you feel this way, Dusty. He's clearly not 100%. He's trying to gut this through. You're not getting, optimal De'Aaron Fox here. But Vassell has been so good in this series. Off game. Wembanyama, clear off game. Not good enough.
No, and the steam was wrong, by the way. We got 4.5. We laid 4.5. It dropped down to 3.5 before tip-off. That gets home. We also mentioned of the role guys we liked. We loved Caruso. Caruso went bonkers last night. We'll hear from SGA talking about the vet off the bench, what he's meant to this team, and more specifically, the numbers from three-point are crazy. Alex Caruso has 18 threes made in this series. That is the most for a bench player in the postseason. He made 53 in the regular season, 18 in this series alone. Alex Caruso has absolutely found his stride. He's hitting a different level. And then for Oklahoma City, they had 69 at the half. I felt like they made a statement. And you see, we've been wondering for San Antonio, John, at what point was the inexperience going to show? This, to me, felt like the inexperience showing, and I think that actually carried over in the postgame because Victor Wembanyama didn't meet with the media. And I know people say, hold on, how is that a betting angle? How does that make any sense? Well, this is a guy who's wanted it every step of the way. All the quotes all season long, I'm hungry, I want to be a champion, I want to be the face of the league, I want to win the MVP. He doesn't shy away from it. You can't have your so-called leader, the future face of the association, not meet with the media because he had a bad game. I just thought that was a weak look, and it showed a crack in the Spurs that we really hadn't seen from this young group to this point.
And that's why, Dusty, I have kind of been of the mindset throughout this series and really throughout this postseason when it's been discussed, hey, can San Antonio go and win it all? The history of the league,
Nope.
it kind of tells us no. Teams like this that emerge, that come from the lottery, that find themselves playing deep into the postseason, they hit that point where they got to learn. We saw with Oklahoma City a couple years ago. Hey, they lost the series to the Dallas Mavericks. The Boston Celtics for years with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're coming up short. Even, Miami, that was a team that was fresh, put together, all the star power. They had to lose that series to the Dallas Mavericks, only to come back the following year, learn from it, build from it, beat the Celtics on the road in Game 6 and then in Game 7, and then, of course, taking down Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, and the Oklahoma City Thunder in 5. The point being is, I feel like we are witnessing that sort of learning experience. And I know we'll spend more time in diving into the betting angles for game number 6. I can tell you, buddy boy, without hesitation, I will be hopping right back on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think this series is going to be over on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm with you. After last night, I went from believing this was a 7-game series to seeing a team that really had never been in this situation before completely panic. Wemby 0 for 5 from 3. He had 6 rebounds. Dude, you're 7'5". What are you, Brook Lopez? Brook Lopez makes no sense to me. He's a 7-footer who can't average double-digit rebounds. Victor Wembanyama's got to play like a big man. He's got to do that. This standing on the perimeter, wanting to create, wanting to play as a guard. It's like sometimes in these spots, he wants to prove he's more than just his size. And it's like, dude, just take advantage of what God gave you. Utilize it to your advantage and dominate this opponent that doesn't have a matchup for you. No one in the league has a matchup for you. Stop trying to be a 2-guard and just win the game. I thought we saw a level of panic from them. And on the other side, this is what happens when you have a championship pedigree. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they've been through this before. They're now 9-0 off of a loss in the last 2 postseasons. That's 8-1 against the spread, 6-1 covering the number when they are at home. We will hear from SGA. We will hear from Stephon Castle because, as per usual, there's some complaining about the refs. But we do have a baseball game about to get going, and I do want to get a play in before it starts. So we're going to San Diego here, JJ. Walker Buehler.
We were there yesterday. It treated us well. Let's go back to San Diego, gladly.
Walker Buehler taking on Christopher Sanchez. And Sanchez, your National League Cy Young favorite, 32 straight scoreless innings for the lefty, 36 punch-outs, 19 hits allowed in that span. He's had one bad start this year. It was against the Cubs. Other than that, he's been amazing. 2 starts against the Friars a year ago, 7 1/3, 1 earned, 6 strikeouts. Another 7 innings, 1 earned, 5 strikeouts. Padres, surprisingly, when you have Tatis, when you have Machado, you have Laureano, you have all these guys that can hit lefties, they're dead last in OPS against southpaws this year. That has blown my mind to start the season. They're not really an offensive team. This number, that is so cheap. Oh, my God. We're down to -120 in the Phillies. So we're getting steamed up on San Diego, who is plus $1.35 on open. I think the steam's wrong. I think this is just people wanting to bet against the streak in Sanchez, but I don't see that out of San Diego's offense right now. This is the hottest pitcher in baseball. Walker Buehler, 5.05 ERA, and he's walking a lot of batters his last few starts. And I know San Diego's won his last 4, but he's allowed runs in each of them. I think Sanchez gets you through 5. So I laid the half a run minus a half run, first 5, -128 on the Phillies. Kind of shocked that the full game number is down to 128 here at Circa. It's -148 at DraftKings. I don't mind going full game now if you can get that number here at Circa.
Dusty, I'd be very, very concerned about this game. This line opened up in the 150 range.
Fishy.
You detailed the brilliance of Christopher Sanchez. He's been as good as anybody in the National League. So what am I missing here? Why did this line go from 150-ish to now a little inside of 130? Like, I know you can make the argument the steam's wrong. I'm going to just trust the guy who's been lights out throughout the course of the year. There are games that I look at, Dusty. I don't know if you do this when you look and break down a card. They stink to the high heavens.
It stinks.
This is one of those games. I'm not betting San Diego because I'm not taking sides against the family here. But if you're asking me gut feel, what I would do with this line, just like seeing how it's moved, kind of getting a sense for it, I would take the Padres plus the money because I think the line and the movement is, number one, trying to tell you something. And 2, I have concerns about that Philly lineup, which can be very up and down, has not been locked in this year. And that total basically indicates as such. I mean, Walker Buehler is pitching to a 5 ERA, and yet we still got a total in the 7s. So I actually would go with San Diego if I were betting a game. I'm not.
No.
And doesn't that total reek of an under?
Okay, so a couple things here. I bet the first 5 minus a half run last night when it was minus 167. I was like, oh, we're going to go north of 170 easily, 175, something like that. It came back the other way. The under makes sense. I wrote down in my notes, these are 2 under teams. Philly, 54.7% to the under, 29, 24, and 2. San Diego, absolutely best under team in baseball, 58.5%. You want to ride as a family for funsies right now? Go under on the game.
You know what? How about this? I'm not going to take the Padres because I don't want to do that to you. Let's take the under. Let's ride the under.
Let's do it together.
We'll do it as a family. By the way, I look forward to a first 5 play, which I happily tailed yesterday with the Washington Nationals. That was an absolute thing of beauty.
Dude, that was a nice one. That was a fun one.
It's nice when they cash early and there's no sweat. You know,
and
we need those.
We're going to talk about Washington a little bit later. Now, against Cleveland, is that game over yet? It was wrapping up, I believe, when we were hitting the air. Yep, Cleveland got the win 3-2. That was a first 5 where I laid the half run today. Ooh, did we get lucky in the bottom of the 5th? We got runs from the guards. But bigger picture conversation with Gavin Williams, a guy that I actually bet for Cy Young. He lowered his ERA. The numbers going back the last half of last year, they've been really good. I want to ask you about that. Also want to update everyone that Dustin May flirted with a no-hitter earlier today, and the Cardinals somehow lost the game. 2-1. Brewers with the victory. Milwaukee wins, even though Dustin May was absolutely tremendous in that contest. May goes 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, and 9 strikeouts, and somehow loses this game. That is a brutal beat. And then lastly, the Blue Jays with a 2-1 win over the Marlins earlier today. As far as the live action's concerned, Seattle's all over the A's. I'm sweating out a mini ladder I did on Logan Gilbert on his strikeouts. 3 innings, 5 strikeouts for him as the Mariners lead 5-0 in the 4th. If I can get 2 more out of him, we will be sitting pretty, or 3 more out of him, we'll be sitting pretty. And then finally, your last update, we've got the Diamondbacks and Giants. They are scoreless in the 2nd inning at Oracle Park. But some history was made out in the desert. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, really hard to conceptualize the success in such a short amount of time. We will talk about them eliminating and sweeping the Avalanche on the other side of Follow the Money.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you get access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Follow the Money, Dustin Sweetelson, John Jastrzemski. We got you covered here for the next couple hours on the program. Don't worry, Mitch and Paul, they return tomorrow. Back in the power chair, as some people like to say. We got a fun show lined up for you. In about 15 minutes, Adam Hill is going to join the program. Las Vegas Review-Journal will get his thoughts on the Golden Knights advancing to the Stanley Cup final, because I got to tell you, man, I moved out here, 2021, and I was in LA in 2018, their first season. They made the Stanley Cup, and that was a critical year for the city, because if you go back in time, there was the shooting at Mandalay Bay. They kind of helped the community come together. They helped the community heal. They got to the Cup final. They ultimately lost. Then in 2019, it's a first-round loss for the Knights. 2020, 2021, they lose in the conference finals. They missed the playoffs in 2022, but don't worry, in 23, they hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup, and then they lost in the first round after that. They lost in the second round after that, and now somehow they find themselves in the Stanley Cup final, eliminating the Avalanche, which to me is the most shocking turn of events of anything maybe in all of the postseason, because Colorado, JJ, all season long, this was your heavy favorite to win the West. It was a short number for months and months and months, and they didn't even get a win in the conference final. Just absolutely insane turn of events. And here's VGK. Can you ever remember a team in a short amount of time having this much success at the beginning of their existence?
No, it's pretty wild to think about. If you think about expansion teams, the Florida Marlins won in 97. They won again in 2003. The difference between the Florida Marlins and Vegas, Florida, if you take away those two championships, most of the regular seasons beyond that were atrocious. They were gutting the team. They were selling off players. So Vegas, I really would have to think about that from like an expansion team standpoint. Arizona won in 2001. They came into the league in 98. They had a couple of good years, but hard to find one, Dusty.
It's
hard
crazy
to find one. And, you know, we were talking about this yesterday, and I know in the NHL there's a pathway for this. This is not uncommon for hockey teams to make a coaching change with like a month left in a regular season or a couple weeks to go in the regular season. Like this has happened before. But to make such a sudden late coaching change and to see John Tortorella come in and just basically wave a magic wand and get that team back to the championship form they were at a couple of years ago, nothing short of remarkable. And Dusty, not to get too philosophical here, but I will. John Tortorella has a resume where he's been around forever. He won a Stanley Cup many moons ago with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has turned programs around, whether it's the Rangers, the Columbus Blue Jackets. He ended up in Philly. He wins that second cup. Kind of puts him almost in a different kind of class as far as a head coach in the NHL, right? Like 2 Stanley Cups, all that longevity, all that success. That's a nice little enhancement for a potential Hall of Fame resume.
No, he's a guy whose name always comes up whenever there's an opening and he doesn't have a job. He's basically the Rob Ryan quote. Go ahead, fire me. I'll be unemployed for 5 minutes. 1914 one run as the head coach of this team. One of 3 coaches to reach the Stanley Cup final after taking over a coach with 10 games or less left in the regular season. That joins Roger Nielsen, 5 games in 82 with the Canucks, Larry Robinson, 8 games with the 2000 Devils, and I'm glad you brought up the Marlins. This reminds me of the 2003 Marlins. Jack McKeon takes over middle of the season for Jeff Torborg. They got off to a 16-22 start. Boom, all of a sudden, Josh Beckett, Juan Pierre, they're winning a ring there over your Yankees. And another example, Ty Lue, 2015-16. People don't remember this. The Guardians, the Cavaliers started 30-11 under David Blatt. They fired him.
David Blatt.
They fired him.
David Blatt.
And they brought in Ty Lue, and they won a championship that year. Those are the only comparisons that jumped out to me. You have a better one. You can tweet us at Dustin Sweetelson, at VSiN Live, at John_Jastrzemski. But big picture for hockey, because I touched on the Avalanche. They won the President's Cup. And the President's Cup winner hasn't won the Stanley Cup since 07-08. Is that a good or bad thing for hockey?
I think it's fine. Listen, I think the Stanley Cup playoffs, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, there are countless examples of President Cups teams that fall flat on their face. In fact, it's like one of those like dreaded awards or dreaded banners that you got to go and put up because it usually means you're not going to have the payoff of the real celebration and the real parade and all of the real pomp and circumstance that you're looking for. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't know about you, Dusty. I like the uncertain, wild, wild west nature of the Stanley Cup playoffs that it feels like you get on a year in and year out basis. And listen, I'm not going to pretend to be a hockey expert. We talk to a bunch. You have a bunch in your life. I have a bunch in my life. They were all in my ear saying, JJ, Colorado, Carolina, Carolina, collision course, Carolina, Colorado. The odds indicated as such throughout the course of the regular season. And just when you think that's the guarantee, Tortorella's Vegas Golden Knights have other plans.
100%. No, 100%. I'm with you, though. I actually do think it's a good thing. I just wanted to pose the question there. I like the volatility, especially from a betting perspective. The last thing we want is chalk. The last thing we want is just the favorites winding up there in the end. There's no fun stories when it's consistently the same teams over and over again. I mean, look at the NBA. Oklahoma City wins 1 title and everyone's sick of them already. You like fresh blood and you like that there's hope, right, for anyone to make a run, and that means you can bet with some bigger tickets out there potentially in the market. So to put it into perspective, VGK 30-1 to sweep the Western Conference Final. That gets home. 5th time ever President's Trophy winner was swept. So also the first time That's happened, I believe, since 90. No, it wasn't 95 and Detroit. We're 2022, Florida, Tampa Bay, second round. Last time that happened in that regard. Golden Knights, first Cup team under 40 wins in an 80-plus game season since the 2002 Hurricanes. Their 95 points would not have made the playoffs if they were an Eastern Conference team. That's crazy. But here they are with a chance to win another ring. Absolutely insane. I want to go back to baseball here real quick because we're going to do hockey in the next segment. But I touched on it earlier in the Open. Gavin Williams with a really good showing against a Washington team that's scoring runs against everyone. So in case you missed it, Gavin Williams fires 7 innings today for Cleveland in a 3-2 win. 3 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts. ERA is now down to 3.07. Looking at the American League Cy Young Award, his number has absolutely dropped. He opened the season 35, 40-1. He's been sitting in the 22-1 range. Now he's the 4th shot on the betting board. Cam Schlittler, even money as the favorite. Dylan Cease, 5.5-1. Jacob deGrom, 6-1. And there's Gavin Williams, your last potential bet under 10-1. I have him at 40-1, so I'm super biased here, JJ. But I think this kid figured something out last year. And because they need him to be such a stud at the front of that rotation on a team that's leading their division, I still think there's a chance he contends for this. I don't know if he gets home, but let's be fair. Jacob deGrom in front of him off 2 bad showings. He'll go again tonight. We'll see how he looks against Houston. Dylan Cease, the second shot on the board. I love Dylan Cease, but that's a dude that's nothing but volatile with the walks and the potential long balls. And then Cam Schlittler, we don't know how the Yankees are going to manage him because he's never thrown 200 innings in his life. Do you give a little bit of a chance to Gavin Williams being in the mix for the long haul?
Oh, he's definitely live. No question. Out of the 4 names you mentioned, listen, Schlittler, to me, hands down, no questions asked. And I know the New York guy is talking up the New Yorker. You know, he's actually from Massachusetts, if we're keeping score. But it's not even close. He's been the best starter in the American League.
100%.
There's a cautionary tale, though, Dusty. And I think Cam Schlittler is a far superior pitcher to the guy I'm about to mention. But I want to take everybody back 2 years ago. Luis Gil got off to a rip-roaring start for the New York Yankees and moved up the odds board for the AL Cy Young. Looked like a guy who was going to be starting the All-Star game, and then he kind of fell off in the month of June. He had a terrible month of June, missed time with an injury. It still was enough for Gil to go and win AL Rookie of the Year, but it was not enough for Gil to go and maintain and hold the Cy Young. I do think from a talent perspective, though, the talent of Schlittler and the makeup of Schlittler is just a different beast. But the 2 guys you mentioned ahead of Gavin Williams, I wouldn't want anything to do with a DeGrom future. Nothing. And I love Jake. I think he's going to end up a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. You're telling me you could count on Jacob deGrom to go and make 30-plus starts this year? I don't think so. Guy is just a walking injury waiting to happen. And what scares me about Dylan Cease is incredibly volatile. He's been able to kind of harness that in so far in the first 2 months of the season. And I know his strikeout numbers are always going to wow you. And that's maybe something that voters are going to be swayed by. But if you're giving me take Schlittler out of it, the 3 other contenders, Gavin Williams at 10-1 sounds a lot better than DeGrom and sounds a lot better than Cease.
Yeah, I still think he's live. I still think it's a playable number there. And for Schlittler, it has nothing to do with performance, has nothing to do with ability. It's just the Yankees need to win a ring. There's pressure on Boone. There's pressure on Cashman. And I think they have to manage a kid who's only ever thrown 121 innings in a season in his entire pro career. Hey, the clock is ticking on one of the best VSiN Pro offers of the year. It's your final week at full VSiN Pro access, normally $240 for just $199 when you sign up, and we'll give you 2 months for free. 14 months of VSiN Pro access, less than 50 cents a day. Use the promo code PRO. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe. Use the promo code PRO. Hurry up. Offer expires after May 31st. All right. When we return, the Las Vegas Knights are back in the Stanley Cup final. We'll put some perspective of what they've achieved coming up next on Follow the Money.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Back at it on Follow the Money. He's John Jastrzemski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. You're locked into VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Appreciate you making us part of your day. However you may be tuning in, Sirius XM Channel 158, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, and radio affiliates across the United States of God bless America. We broadcast from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. When you watch the Vegas Golden Knights play, there is a patch for Circus Sports right on the very front of it. Got a good look at it when Sebastian Maniscalco was wearing it the other day on my social feeds. I was like, man, that's worth every penny for Circa right there, getting in front of a lot of eyeballs. And the Golden Knights, they're the story of the town. They're the toast of the town. John, you move to a place, you never know how they feel about their teams. This is really unique, this town, because you go to any bar, the whole bar shuts down and becomes a Knights bar as soon as the game starts.
They're the number one team in town, right? Dusty's not even close.
Genuinely, they care and love this team. They don't care about the Raiders as much, although maybe our next guest would argue with me about that. They are not going to care about the A's. I will guarantee that one for you. And a guy who's been in Vegas forever, he covers all the teams for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Adam Hill is going to join us. Did I lie in anything I just said there about the fan base and where they stand with VGK and the rest of the teams in town?
No, not at all. And I won't argue with the Raiders. I cover the Raiders. That's my main job. But certainly you see the passion that the town has for the Knights. And I'll give you a quote I might have used on your show before because I've probably used it 1,000 times. And it comes from a former Golden Knight, Max Pacioretty. And some fans don't like it, but he was actually complimenting them. He said, "There's just not hockey fans in Vegas. There's only Golden Knights fans."
That's perfect.
And I think that makes a ton of sense. And it kind of wraps up like this city's fandom. Like there were some former hockey teams like the Thunder, a minor league team. They've had some history. The Wranglers were here as well for a little bit. So there was some, a small base of fans, but the town just loves the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights were not a team that moved here as an expansion team. So it was, Vegas born was their motto for a while. They're the only team that actually, started here. So they had that. And then, for those listening around the country who might not know this, I mean, it's been well documented, but 6 days before the first home game in team history was when the worst tragedy in our city ever happened. The October 1st shooting was 6 days before their first game. So it was kind of like the way that the town bonded and came together over this team that eventually made the final that year was crazy, and that bond has remained. And so, yeah, the town loves the Golden Knights.
Adam, speaking of crazy, did you see this coming? They make the coaching change. They say goodbye to Cassidy. They bring in John Tortorella. And all of a sudden you go on this insane heater and you find yourself in these Stanley Cup finals. When was the moment for you? Maybe it was in round one. Hey, maybe it was right when they made the coaching change. You're close to the team. You know the team better than I do. When was the moment you said, yeah, I think this team could get back to a cup final?
It's funny. I mean, in general, I'll say I always thought that they could because the team has so much talent. The second half of the season wasn't great, and that's why there was a coaching change. But if you look back, this was a team that had the most Olympians of any team. All these guys were playing the Olympics. A couple for Team USA, a couple for Canada, a couple for Sweden, like all over the map. So they had all these guys in different places in the middle of the season. They came back from the Olympics and they just could not put it together. But we knew the talent was there. You knew the ability was there. We knew the playoff experience and everything else. When they made the coaching change, one of the things that I wrote was, look, they're going to have success in the playoffs because they were going to have success in the playoffs. Like this is a team that was going to be good. Now, what I meant by that was they're going to win their first two rounds because the division stunk. They were going to get through those Pacific Division series. But I thought, in my mind, I said, okay, they're going to get to the Western Conference Finals, and then that's it because they're going to run into either Minnesota or Colorado or potentially even Dallas. And that's the series they're not going to be able to win. So am I surprised that they had playoff success? No. Am I surprised that they got through this Western Conference Final? Yes, especially in a sweep. And when did I think they were actually going to make it? It was when they went up 2-0 yesterday. Because I still thought down, up 3-0, Colorado's still the more explosive team. They're the better team over the course of the season. It was 1-0 all the way through the game, and they couldn't get that second goal. And I just kept thinking Colorado's going to score. They're going to take the win in overtime. They'll go back to Denver. They'll win there. All the pressure will swing back to the Golden Knights, and then they could blow a 3-0 lead. And then when they went up 2-0, I said, better start looking at flights to Carolina.
Wow. Absolutely insane. Adam Hale, sports writer, Las Vegas Review-Journal, talking about the Golden Knights winning 2-1, 4-0 sweep of the Avalanche. That, by the way, paid 30-1 in the betting market. Now, speaking of betting, let's look at the Conn Smythe, because I do think there's a conundrum in this series. And you told me this off the air a few weeks ago when we were hanging out, that VGK's always had a goalie problem. They may have solved it with the addition of Carter Hart, but that doesn't come without controversy, with a lot of things that have gone on in recent years. And if they were to win the Stanley Cup, it feels like he would play a prominent role in that. He's 12-1 to win the Conn Smythe. Do you believe voters would actually vote for him, even with his transgressions?
Short answer, if you want to just move on, is no. They won't. No, but I'll answer the question and say no. They're not going to. I think that Carter Hart could probably have 4 shutouts in the final, and he's not winning the Conn Smythe. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. And it's a very complicated thing to talk about, obviously, because of the story behind it. And, I've written stories on it. I've read the entire transcript of the court case, which I don't think many people have. I know a lot about the case. I know a lot about him. I've gotten to know him a little bit this year, done a couple of sit downs with him. And, I'll tell you that when you're doing it, you understand the background, you understand what happened and why people despise him, maybe that don't know him. And then you're talking to him and you're like, God, he's just a really, really good kid. Like, he's not a kid anymore. He's 27. At the time, he was a kid. It's tough not to like him when you talk to him, but you also understand what happened. And I just think no matter how well he does, there's going to be a contingent. I saw Golden Knights fans today that had swore the team off, that were posting on social media like, you know what, I hope somehow he gets hurt and they still win. Like, I just can't cheer for him. And I understand that's out there. But I think nationally the media would have a tough time. Not to mention, like, if there was no other candidates, then I think it'd be a tougher call. And you could say maybe he wins. But, like, Mitch Marner has not only been fantastic, but he's had this narrative his whole career that he chokes in the playoffs. He doesn't help his team elevate once the postseason begins. And he has been unbelievable in this run. And so, if nobody else emerges as a candidate, I would say you might have to think about maybe Carter Hart does win this thing, and he probably deserves to. But I just think Mitch Marner's been so good. Like, that narrative is going to help the voting.
Okay, Adam. Eastern Conference Final. Carolina was kind of lumped in with Colorado as the team. That's a given, right? You expect them to go and get to the Stanley Cup Final. Obviously, Colorado's not going to be playing in it. Carolina's up 2-1. Is that the less preferred matchup? I got to assume most people in Vegas rooting for Montreal, correct?
Most fans, yes. Most media people who have to deal with traveling across the international border 3 times in a series are saying, let's go Carolina.
Fair enough. I get that. I would have the same thought process. No question.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the fans look at Carolina as a more favorable, or Montreal's more favorable matchup. But I'd also say the way the Golden Knights are playing, I don't know that fans think they're going to lose ever again. So I think they would say bring it on. And also, look, Carolina has their own history of not coming through in the postseason, and so I don't think the fans are necessarily scared of anybody, but Montreal probably a better matchup.
Adam, before I let you go here, your primary focus at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, covering the Raiders here in town. Now, in your dealings so far around town with Fernando Mendoza, I know you literally spent months stalking him in Bloomington. How you feeling about the vibes out of Raiders camp right now?
I mean, they're positive. Didn't you see the slow motion video of him throwing a spiral?
I did not see that. That did not. Unfortunately, among the food reviews of people eating in their car, that was not something that popped up in my TikTok feed recently.
I'll send it to you, and you'll see that he throws a spiral, Justin. I think means that he's going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's how fans are. No, but look, I think Fernando Mendoza has been what everybody expected. He's been a role model in the building. He's in there early. He's studying, learning everything from Kirk Cousins. I thought it was interesting last night. There was a Raiders suite that was organized by one of the offensive linemen, and both of the quarterbacks were in there and together, hanging out. And that wasn't something that was done on purpose. I could just tell you it was off camera, and you could see, like, hey, they're getting along. They're having a good time, which I think is a good sign for this relationship going forward of how they're going to learn and grow and how Kirk Cousins is going to be a good mentor for them.
Adam, appreciate.
It's like the Step Brothers meme.
Yeah.
That's what it is, Dusty. Step Brothers.
It
the
is.
two of them.
Adam, appreciate you doing this as always, man. Look forward to the coverage at the LVRJ. Check him out at Adam Hill, LVRJ, over on X. The Golden Knights back in the Stanley Cup final. Thanks as always, my friend. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
What is this? It smells like fish. No, it's not the quote you think is happening right now. The Padres, runners on first and third against Christopher Sanchez, said the line was fishy. Something's going on here. San Diego's got something brewing. We are in the second inning. First and third, 2 out. Can the Cy Young favorite get out of this? And oh, by the way, what if he got touched up by the Friars today? What would that do to that market? I don't think he'd move too much, but could make things certainly interesting there. What's the market look like as far as the NBA Finals are concerned? We will look at those hypothetical odds for the Spurs Thunder taking on the Knicks. That's next on Follow the Money.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Back at it. Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. He's John Jastremski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. Thanks for making us part of your day, however you may be tuning in. Sirius XM 158, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, radio affiliates across the United States of God Bless America. Before we went to break, we touched on it in the Phillies-Padres game. We are still scoreless here in the top of the third inning. Christopher Sanchez works out of a runners on first and third, 2-out jam and remains a 0-0 ball game right now. And I was asking JJ during the break because they were showing the overhead shot of Petco, and I feel like maybe the stadium gets a little bit lost in the shuffle because there's so much hype about Pittsburgh being the best stadium. I've heard from several people that have gone to Petco that puts that as like their number one ballpark, but I've never been, you've never been. I really haven't been to a lot of the newer ballparks, which is kind of weird because I love baseball. I think one of the newer ones I've been to that I loved was Minute Maid in Houston. And really, that's not that new. We're probably looking at 30 years old right now for them. Like, do you have a favorite ballpark you've been to outside of Yankee Stadium?
Listen, the old Yankee Stadium will forever and ever and ever have a place near and dear in my heart. Fenway and Wrigley, you can't beat them because of like the nostalgia vibes, but like I almost want to put them in a different category
for sure
of the newer parks. So I'm going to say like from 1990 and beyond, the stadium that's been built. Camden Yards in Baltimore is outstanding. It's such a wonderful place to watch a game. It's got the old school feel, but it's got more of the modern amenities. I'll tell you another place, Dusty, that was fantastic. Seattle. Really cool spot. I was up there for the All-Star game a couple of years ago. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
See, I got to do that. I'm on the West Coast. You know, you grow up in the Northeast, you hit certain spots. Everyone in the Northeast somehow finds their way to Camden, and then they go back. I think that's the biggest, like, selling point for Baltimore.
It's such
an
easy drive from New York, too. Like, I'm thinking about going when the Yankees play in August. Like, it's such an – I get down there under 3 hours.
I lived in D.C. I used to take the train from New York, New Jersey down to D.C. and Baltimore all the time. Camden Yards, I love because it's built into the city. Like, that matters to me. I don't want to go to Philly where it's 3 stadiums in a parking lot. Like, that doesn't excite me. I want you to be a part of the environment, part of, like, the chaos of a city that people are just kind of walking by on the regular day by day, and you're just built into that environment.
That's why Chicago and Boston are so great, too.
Yeah, I've never been to Wrigley.
You can't top those environments, though, because you're talking about 100 years of history.
Yeah.
The Monster, the Ivy. I like the surrounding area of Wrigley a little bit more than Fenway, for what it's worth.
That's
Fenway's
what I've
great.
heard.
There's more to do. You know what it is, Dusty? There's more to do outside of Wrigley Field.
Now,
There's limited options outside of Fenway.
I haven't been to Citi Field since the 2015 World Series. But last I checked in, if you want a muffler, go to Citi Field. You can get one on the way out.
Yeah, it's coming to an end, though, Dusty.
But yeah.
Uncle Stevie's got those casinos that are waiting to be built. It might take a few years, but the construction has already begun.
You might be doing shows here on VSiN from those casinos once they're up and erected there. we may be seeing it from there.
What did Kevin Garnett once say? Anything's possible, baby. Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. That is a good transition here because in case you missed it last night, Oklahoma City, I felt like they made a statement with the win over San Antonio. They cover 5.5 to 3.5, whichever way you bet it. But they take a lead 3-2 in the series. Oklahoma City offensively, it was very clear after San Antonio got off to a good start. They're like, hold on, let's calm things down, let's get organized, and they just started pulling away from the Spurs as the game went on. But when we get to the postseason, JJ, there's always a level of gamesmanship that whether it's a coach or a player likes to do with the referees. And as long as the Thunder are involved, people are going to complain about the refs because you got a guy in SGA, the free throw merchant, shooting 16 to 17 from the charity stripe last night. You factor in like that's just part of his game. That's what he's going to do night in and night out. Stephon Castle mentioned the refs when he met with the media following the loss for the Spurs.
Trying to play through it, it's tough. I just think with the way they guard, how physical they are, we don't get that same luxury to be able to play as physical on the other end at times. But offensively, I think we do a good job of screening and playing through it. So I think we create a lot of advantages, but I think we just missed a lot of open shots tonight.
Okay. So there's two levels to this for me. One, I think this is gamesmanship. We've seen coaches do it routinely in a series. They want to get better calls in the next game. They complain about the refs. It usually works in their favor. But I also want to add another wrinkle to this that drives me insane because I am very anti getting on the radio and complaining about the refs or the umpires, acting like they're the reason your team, your bet lost. If they didn't do enough to overcome the potential mistakes of the human beings on the floor, like that's on them. That's not on. You have to factor in that the refs could screw you out of this situation. People are going to complain about last night. There was a missed goaltending. They had the ball going off Chet's foot that they missed. And then there was a challenge by Mitch Johnson that the refs didn't see him try to make a coach's challenge. Where do you stand on people complaining about the referees in this series with the Thunder?
I think it's case by case. When it comes to this series, I don't think it's been a story.
I agree.
Despite what San Antonio may want it to be, to me, with officiating controversies, Dusty, these games got to be super, super tight. I mean, when you're talking real small margins, then I can understand every nitpick and every critique when it comes to calls being made or not being made. But let's just look at this series objectively, because we neither one of us has any dog in the fight. I bet the Spurs plenty in the series. I bet the Thunder plenty in the series. Game one was classic. Double overtime game. Could have gone either way. Game two, close-ish, but the Thunder were the better team. Game three, not close. OKC. Game four, San Antonio, not close. Game five, OKC, not close. The Thunder survived an incredibly inefficient game from SGA, and he still goes and gets his 30-plus points. But that, to me, is not the storyline of this game. The storyline of this game was, hey, OKC got help other than SGA. You wanted to see a bounce-back game out of Chet Holmgren. You got that. And the big players for the Spurs didn't do the job. I want to hear about officiating when you got a dud from Wembanyama, you got a dud from Vassell, and Fox wasn't on his game.
100%. Now, which camp do you come down in this for last night? Do you think that was a situation where the Spurs were sloppy, or is it a spot where Oklahoma City's experience showed itself where they just said, you know what, we got to take care of business. We know the situation at hand. Whoever wins game 5 is likely going to win the series. Just go historically, it's around like 82% in the past. Do you put it more on the Spurs sloppiness or the Thunder stepped up?
I think it's the Thunder stepping up because their defense and the way they play defense forces you into that sort of sloppiness you're talking about. That's just how they get after it. They have an incredibly physical team, and that's going to be the knock. We'll probably hear it in the next series if they're playing the Knicks. Oh, they're letting them. They're not letting them. It's too tight. They're not letting them play. They're all over them. Blah, blah, blah. If it's OKC, they're gonna want it called like it's the 1990s. They're gonna want, hey, free reign, go play defense, do whatever you need to do to be this sort of wow team that's locking down their opponent. I think the Knicks, if they get to an NBA final, they're going to want it called a little tighter. So don't be surprised if they kind of echo some of the complaints we've heard from Wemby and Castle and all of these San Antonio Spurs. You play the Thunder, you want calls, and not against SGA.
You know what I keep thinking about? Just because it's inevitable, like whoever wins this obviously takes on the Knicks in the finals, but if it's the Thunder with the foul baiting, could you imagine if David Stern was still alive and running the league, the difference of the whistle from this series to the next one with the Knicks involved? You just know the Knicks would be getting a way better whistle, and some of these flops for SGA would not get called against the Knicks.
Well, and you'll have two guys in this series, Jalen Brunson and SGA, where each of the opposing fan bases are going to be losing their freaking minds on every single call that is made. So, Dusty, mentally prepare yourself for that now. SGA is going to turn into public enemy number one in New York City. Oh, he gets every call. He's a flopper. Then if you're talking to any Oklahoma City fan and they're at that college-like environment, which is great, I think it's one of the best NBA environments you're going to find in a league, they're going to be chanting against Brunson. So, hey, gamesmanship, pawn for the course, whatever you want to call it, just get ready. These teams have players that are very identifiable in that flopper range. So it's going to be a lot more of that.
I got a little distracted with the ref conversation. We'll do the potential hypothetical odds from all these various sports books. We see them up at a few shops. I went on a fact-finding mission along with Patrick Maher. You can catch VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio weekdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we texted a few bookmakers out there. What would they make their lines? We'll also hear from one of those people, Arthur DeCesar, coming up here in about 35 minutes on the program. He of the Westgate with thoughts on what the finals numbers could potentially look like. But want to remind you that the sports calendar, it never stops. And the Sharp Plays, they cover it all. They've been winning for 15 straight years, all of it documented, logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com. That kind of transparency is rare in this industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, the sports books take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they find value before the numbers shift. Respected, watched, feared. Start winning with them at sharpplays.com today. We got to get you situated with the live baseball, plus we got to preview what's to come. Into the quad, through the gymnasium, there's a team streaking in baseball. Do we bet against that streak today? JJ and I will discuss next on Follow the Money.